Welcome to the Mrs. Are Relevant Daily Draft Podcast, joined by Randall, Andy, about to break down South Carolina and Vanderbilt. But before we do that, Andy, what's the good news in college football for you right now?
Well, man, just if we're going to talk about general college football, I have to take it down to Eugene, Oregon, where they got a quarterback who was a former five-star, where they got a quarterback who's been doubted. He got forced down to a bench role at UCLA for some nobody. And now Dante Moore is in Eugene, Oregon, and he's looking amazing. I mean, he's a Heisman contender, even frontrunner at this point. So if we're just talking general college football, I have to take the moment to say that Dante Moore, if you're talking about guys who may sneak into the first round this year, Dante Moore.
Ooh, that's a flag. All right, well, realistically, I got to ask about Colorado. Now, what's your thoughts on the Colorado QB situation?
I think it should be Ryan Staub, man.
All right, there you go.
I think Ryan Staub just looked exceptional against Delaware. He has the coaching staff backing him. He has all the pieces in place to succeed. And this Friday night in Houston, I want Ryan Staub to get the start.
There you go. So Deion's right. That's what personally I like to hear. All right. Well, what are we talking about today?
Randall, what's your college football theme from last weekend?
Arkansas's 2-0. Taylon Green looks like a first rounder against some weak competition, but he's got a good matchup against Ole Miss. I'm curious to see how that goes out. They're, pretty matched team. We got blown out last year, but, Jackson Dart was a quarterback and much of, Princely Umame, and they had a great roster last year. It's a little weaker this year. I'm curious to see how it ends up. Both have good running games. I think that Taylon Green will be able to avoid and evade their pass rush. And the DBs, I think Arkansas DBs are better than Ole Miss DBs. It'll be interesting. I think if we can pull out this win, we can – my whole goal for Arkansas is the path to 9-3 in the SEC to get back to relevancy, and I think we have a chance to do that.
Cool. Well, if I had to think of like what permeates college football, I definitely want to give Dante Moore from Oregon a shout out. I agree with Andy. It seems like everybody wants to talk about other quarterbacks, right? Like Klubnik and Nussmeier are getting a lot of attention because they were the preseason top guys. But we covered Dante Moore during summer scouting. And while there was limited tape, he was actually relatively high on the summer scouting list, and he's moving higher. So he may not be in this draft class. He does have he has this year and possibly another season of eligibility. But Dante Moore is a name that needs to be spoken many times. So,
I mean, if you consistently make this year, do you enter now so you can avoid 2027 quarterbacks?
Yeah.
That's what the age.
I mean, there's no real clear QB1 this year.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
And then I'm going to keep mentioning Sawyer Robertson's name because, again, other guys are getting hype. And while Sawyer Robertson may still have some flaws to his game, he has put up, I believe, 400 yards in back-to-back weeks. You can't overlook that. There's still some things that need to get cleaned up. But coming out of summer scouting, it was, can Sawyer Robertson be consistent? And he's the quarterback at Baylor, if you didn't know that. So I think between Dante Moore and Sawyer Robertson, I think we have a lot to fill the airwaves for like the next 10 to 15 weeks.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
We actually have two quarterbacks in this game. So Vanderbilt-South Carolina, we have Diego Pavia for Vanderbilt. We have LaNoriss Sellars for South Carolina. Andy, which guy do you want to talk about first?
I'd like to cover LaNoriss Sellars from South Carolina. Very fun player. I mean, this guy has everything you want in a prototypical dual threat beast of a quarterback. Dream high speed, special athlete, elite pure running quarterback. Very good pure arm talent. Maintains a lot of velocity on his throws. He's a gamer quarterback, thrives on the run, high football IQ. And he'll only be 20 on draft night. That's a really interesting note for me. He's a very young quarterback prospect. I mean, his accuracy needs a lot of refinement, limited college experience in the grand scheme. But for an SEC quarterback as a redshirt freshman, as a redshirt sophomore, I like him a lot.
Yeah, no, I
Randon,
agree. I
Go ahead.
agree. I mean, he is that prototypical who you want, and he's not Anthony Richardson. When people are going to start comparing to Anthony Richardson, his traits and his IQ seem at least a little more reserved, and he understands where his limitations are when he's throwing the ball. So I really like when I see that. I think he did take a decent step from 24 to 25, except for a couple of things. But when I saw it in like week 1 and week 2, he looked more calm in the pocket, and he kind of understood to go through his progressions and just let the play develop instead of kind of use your legs as more like he did in 2024. He had some good things. There was obviously that safety in week 1 that didn't look so hot. That's kind of reverted back to 2024 LaNoriss Sellars, but he has plenty of time to kind of move into who he's going to become in the NFL. The question would be, I mean, he would be at 24 starts at the end of the year. So do you have another opportunity to stay? Do you declare at the end of the year or not? Would probably, depending on how South Carolina does, would be the biggest kind of answer to if he declares or not. If they get into the college football playoff, then he's probably just going to be a prototypical first rounder, probably with his size, be the first quarterback picked if they can make it to the college football playoff and further. The only thing that I really need, other than, just working on mechanics, the only thing I do want to see LaNoriss do as a dual threat is get that pressure to sack percentage down. Last year, it was 19% pressure to sack. I think that's a little too high for somebody who's 6'3", 240 and very athletic. I think that should be down lower, just like how Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson have theirs down to 10%. I would, and then this year in week 2, he's at like 33%. And, we're talking Virginia Tech and South Carolina State. He is at 42.9% pressure to sack. So he hasn't improved on that. Mind you, it's only 2 games, so the percentage is going to be high, but it falls in line with that 19%. So let's get that pressure to sack down, evade those rushers, and then we're talking about the number 1 pick.
So I think LaNoriss Sellars and whether he declares, I think that's a story that needs to be talked about. So my opinion is that if LaNoriss Sellars is QB1, he's coming out.
For sure.
If there's any doubt as to whether or not he's QB1, he'll go back to school. So he's either the first pick in this draft or he's back to school. What do you think, Andy?
Yeah, I think that generally sounds realistic. I mean, like I said, there's a lot of uncertainty around who the quarterback 1 is this year. So I think just with Sellars' athleticism, pure talent, all in all, Sellars really should be that guy hypothetically. And if he isn't, I think returning to school is a huge possibility.
Randall, how about you?
I mean, I'm almost 50-50 at the moment just because I agree with Andy. Like this one, like right now, I guess my QB1 outside of LaNoriss Sellars would be, I never said too rude stuff, would be Garrett Nussmeier because the second half in week 1 looked very, very good. And he looked like he was in control of the situation. So, and he's 6 foot, 204 sort of thing. So if an NFL is looking at who they want as their future quarterback, probably even going to take a slightly bigger project in LaNoriss Sellars if he is at the end of the year. I'm not even saying that he is. I think he can turn into just a no-miss guy sort of thing. But if he's a project, he has the easiest path to the number 1. Now, if we're talking about 2027 and you're looking at LaNoriss Sellars versus Arch Manning, you got to, depending on the Manning Collective and what it is and things along those lines, most NFL is going to be like, okay, well, Bloodlines and Arch Manning is the Manning that's dual threat, 6'4", 220 that can run as well. So now you're looking at who do you take, Sellars or Manning? I almost think the NFL teams are going to lean towards Manning, and he wouldn't be the number 1 pick.
See, so first of all, you called it the Manning Collective.
That is Bill Sparks, and I'm going to stick with it.
I was going to say you have been watching other Draft Professor podcasts because that was a Bill Sparks term.
Yeah, I just love Bill Sparks. But yeah, I mean, it makes sense to be honest. The Manning Collective, they are a collective. There's going to be another kid eventually that I believe is a Peyton's son that he went and watched play football. He's going to end up getting into college. So Peyton's son will be the next collective that they start talking about and making sure he's in college for 4 years, So in about 6 years we'll have that same conversation of does he declare as a junior, and then we're all going to be in the same chat 6 years later, being like, do you remember Arch and how he stayed and went to 2027?
So, and I think between the Dante Moore opening that Andy gave, like Andy, that was a huge opening. Like that was awesome. But if we look at like Dante Moore and LaNoriss Sellars, like that there could be a world where each of those guys wants to avoid being in the draft class with DJ Lagway and Arch Manning. Right? Because Lagway could also come out next year, right? So do you want to be like, if you think of like the year that Josh Allen was drafted, do you want to be where, let's say, Lamar Jackson went, or even like what Josh Allen was, he 7th overall, I believe?
Yeah.
But like, do you even want to be that quarterback that falls to 7th overall, or do you want to go in the top 3? Right. Like that could be the discussion for the guys like Dante Moore, LaNoriss Sellars. It's like, is being that high of a pick, because that's your legacy. You can only be drafted once.
Right. Well, let's also say that they break the record and they have 7 quarterbacks drafted in the first round in 2027. Because let's say they all stay, that could be an option, right? They could break that record and go to 7. Would you almost want to be like, if it goes 1, 2, 3, like in a hypothetical situation that's so good that it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, the 7th pick is the best team out of 1 through 7 because they're picking 7th. So maybe you have an edge to go number 7 instead of number 1, sort of thing. I don't know. There's so many moving parts. So
first of all, I had never thought of that take, but that was actually an elite take, I think.
Yeah.
So, I have another question on what Andy brought up. Do we have a history of quarterbacks that were drafted when they were 20 years old? How old was Drake May when he was drafted?
20, right? He just turned 21 and got married.
Yeah.
I think Andy's looking it up. I think we
yeah.
need to filibuster for Andy.
I am.
I believe. Yeah.
So how about any other players that you could think of, Randall, that were drafted at a youngish, wow, that's a difficult word to say, at a young age?
There you go. Quarterbacks, I'm not quite sure. I mean, obviously the claim to fame
Drake
for
May was 21.
He was 21 when he was drafted, not 20.
Okay.
It's Tremaine Edmonds.
Yeah.
Tremaine Edmonds, for Buffalo was drafted at 18.
He was 19.
19, yeah, and he's been in the league for like 10 years now. Sam Darnold was 20.
Okay.
Sam Darnold
Good job,
was 20.
Anthony Russo.
Yep, thank you.
So not only is Anthony in the chat, he's actually listening to us too. So
there you
go. Okay, so we have a history. There is a little bit of data to suggest a quarterback could come out when they're 20. It's not a lot of data, but there is data.
Yeah.
Okay, so then on the other side of this game, we have Diego Pavia. Randall, what do you have on him?
Diego Pavia is super interesting, especially because everybody knows his personality. He went on a heater throughout the summer, calling out all SEC teams, taking them out. So that was fun to see. So Moxie's there, right? Moxie's there, but he's 6'2", 207. His stats match his tape, which is a lot of fun because he's a big time rusher, but he's got 8 touchdowns and 7 fumbles. A lot of design running in Vanderbilt. He has 5.9% big time throws versus 1% turnover worthy percentage, which is interesting in itself because he likes to take deep shots, but he doesn't necessarily put the ball in the harm's way when he throws it. He only had 4 interceptions last year. His adjusted completion percentage is right there at 71%. He's got only a 10% pressure to sack, which is super impressive. He's got some solid footwork. He can throw with anticipation at times. On slants, he throws well in anticipation. He can put it right on the number. His ball placement on the sideline is very good on fades if he can connect on those. The rushing's there, but he's 207. Does that translate to the NFL? Is probably a hard no, unless in his scrambling terms. I don't think you can design run with him in the NFL. But he's a madman. He loves to put his body on the line. Week 2, they were playing. I cannot remember who they were playing last weekend, and he had 2 really solid blocks. One was on a reverse where he ran up and he was the lead blocker, and another one was on a busted play where he laid a dude out. It was super impressive. So he's kind of like that Gardner Minshew kind of guy. Like, do you get drafted, or are you a UDFA guy with that moxie, and then an NFL, like you're a backup, the NFL starter gets hurt, you come in and save the day because you kind of have that gusto, and then everybody falls in love with you, and then you remain a backup quarterback. That's like kind of what I see when I see Diego Pavia.
How about you, Andy?
Yeah, I think the best way to talk about Diego Pavia is he's a winner. Like Diego
Yeah.
Pavia is just a winning quarterback. He puts everything on the line to win. He's going to keep you in ball games at the college level. And he's just, yeah, tough as nails. And statistically, he's solid. He had 20 touchdown to 4 interception ratio last year. But on an NFL level, I think he's a UDFA fighting for a backup in his first camp. And if he doesn't make the team as a backup, he'll be a CFL legend. He'll be the greatest. he'll be one of the greatest CFL quarterbacks of all time. But yeah, I mean, he's 6 foot 207. Very tough runner, but I just can't see that holding up in the NFL for pretty obvious reasons. But yeah, I mean, he's a fun quarterback, especially when Vanderbilt does have fun weapons. He gets the ball to them. Eli Stowers, for instance, he gets the ball to Eli Stowers a lot. I think last week Stowers had a touchdown last week and on a 9-yard out route, I think. So that's just the type of stuff he does. He finds his weapons. He uses what's around him, and he's very good at that.
Agreed.
So what do you think from a draft stock standpoint? Pavia draftable day 3, day 2?
I'm with Andy. I think more UDFA, but that he earns maybe a practice squad the first, but maybe he gets called up and maybe something works out for him. Kind of like I said, like I think if he would get in the game in the third quarter, he's so electric that I wouldn't be surprised that people are like, oh, and then they start looking at Vanderbilt. Like, who is this guy, sort of thing. So that's kind of where the path is. But I agree with Andy. Probably UDFA or PFA. Maybe if a team loves him, Mr. Irrelevant.
Got it. Okay, so Vanderbilt, South Carolina. I guess we had said, hey, let's talk about Vanderbilt because this is probably the only podcast where we're covering them. We've covered South Carolina. I actually think we covered them last week for their game last week. But who do we like on Vanderbilt? Andy?
Yeah, I mentioned Eli Stowers, so I'll talk about him. Let me pull up well, Eli Stowers is kind of all you want in an F tight end. He's an explosive athlete. He's not going to be able to hold up in line at the NFL level, but he's a very smooth pass catcher with good mechanics, good catch radius, comes down with a lot of 50-50 balls, efficient route runner, versatile weapon. But he's very undersized. He struggles to establish leverage when blocking, and he needs refinement in hand usage blocking. So really all of my said weaknesses with him come with the frame blocking. But if you're simply just drafting this guy to be a versatile F tight end or even use him as an H, just get him the football, he'll be awesome. So I think he's currently like a priority early day 3 guy for me. Maybe could sneak into the 3rd round, but needs to go to a friendly system for guys who can get versatile tight ends the football. And if he goes there, yeah, I like him a lot.
Yeah, I definitely get it. I'm a little lower on Stowers. Yeah, he is, pretty light. Last year he had really good yards per route run, but this year's kind of dipping out. But I do believe that I think he'll take a better step than the first 2 weeks. First 2 weeks were a little alarming for me overall. As you said, last week it was Virginia Tech. He was 4 for 4 for only 29 yards and a touchdown. Little confusing of why he wasn't used more in that game, to be honest with you, especially because his touchdown, which you're right, it was a 9-yard. It was like a drag where he got to the second level under the linebacker. That was the last touchdown. So, and that was a 44-22 finish. So I'm surprised that he wasn't used more in the beginning, but I do believe that he'll be used more. But his route running's great. He has really good stem work. He uses his head and fakes for a tight end, at 235. That's impressive. Really good hands. Last year only had a 3% drop rate. He has not dropped the ball this year, so that's impressive. So I kind of I love his route running, and I'll be a broken record when I talk about tight ends because I do agree with Max Toscano. I don't think that he can block. I don't think he tries to block. He was in line for a lot of Virginia Tech, and he was just taking bad angles and then like overrunning it and then be like, whoops, I missed him sort of thing. So his overall blocking, I think, is inexistent. And I just need to see a little bit more production out of him if he's going to be basically a slot tight end.
So if you're not familiar with Max Toscano, he's another draft professor. He has a Substack, Remember the Tight Ends. So Max focuses primarily on tight ends when he scouts. And there's a theory, and I'm buying into the theory, but not everybody. Oh, look at that. Is that Noah?
That's Noah.
Noah, it's nice to see you.
Yeah, he wanted to say hello.
But Max's theory, which I believe it's not consensus, but I believe, is that if you're a tight end, you want to be at least average or adequate inline blocker, because a 6-man surface is really important for how the running game is designed. So you need to add value and be a 6-man surface. That doesn't mean you need to be a good blocker. You need to be an adequate blocker to provide a 6-man surface. And if you're not an adequate blocker, to Randall's point, then you should be compared to a slot wide receiver. Are you giving, from a passing game standpoint, are you giving a plus matchup in the passing game, or could a slot receiver do better than who you are as a pass receiving tight end? And Max's favorite tight end to use is actually Dalton Kincaid.
Nice.
So
there you go.
And if you want to see more of that, Max will be podcasting on the tight end class in early October. So I believe it'll be like the second or the third Friday of October. He'll be coming on with Sam Teets and a few others to kind of break that down. And Eli Stowers is definitely like exhibit A or B in that discussion. But the bottom line is Vanderbilt has a good tight end. Eli Stowers is a really good college tight end. The question is, what's his NFL draft stock, or how will the NFL teams see Eli Stowers? Anybody else on Vanderbilt that you guys want to talk about?
Yeah, there's a safety there that is intriguing. His name is Randon Fontenette. He's more of a star player, so he's that hybrid nickel safety role because he's 6'2", 214. So that's what's super intriguing about him. He brings pass rush, but pass rush kind of has to be manufactured and designed because 2024 he had 7 pressures and 4 sacks, which is good, but they mainly came from just basically open field without a blocker. If he came in on a weak side and nobody came to block him, that's where he came in on it. So it kind of has to be designed for him. But he has good closing speed. He's super athletic. For 6'2", 214, he's projected to run around like a 4.50, 4.55. So that's impressive for his size and on defense. But he's got a lot to work on. His coverage is average. I haven't been able to find a lot of any 2025 Vanderbilt defense tape yet, but he's allowed three receptions on 4 targets. And he basically, what he likes to do is he just plays zone, and he likes to sit in his quadrant and then let everything in front of him come to it and then make that tackle. He doesn't really match a man. I'd like to see him, carry defender through zones if they need to. He doesn't really do that. He just likes to hold his own and stay there where he is to make sure he doesn't make a mistake. Kind of has to take risks sometimes. What I do love is he is a big-time communicator on that front 7. He's constantly using signals, calling out things to make sure that the defense is ready. So I like his leadership in that role. He's just really got to work on a lot of his coverage issues.
Andy, anything that you want to
add? Another guy I like for Vanderbilt is their center, Jordan White. He was a Liberty transfer. I'm pretty sure he was the number 1 center in the portal this previous cycle. I like him as an early day 3 kind of guy. He creates a lot of openings in the run game, sets great anchor strength with ideal refinement and power. Very good positional versatility between guard and center. Helps create a dominant rushing attack. Very good run blocker, pull blocker. Plus mobility, overall athleticism. consistently moves piles. He's pretty undersized, though. 6'2", 300 pounds. Hand placement can get outside and lead to holding calls. Limited counter moves and lacks ideal lateral agility. But for an NFL note, I like Jordan White as like a backup center and maybe works into a starting role.
Yeah, and we had this discussion on one of the teams last night had a center as well. My opinion is that centers are a devalued position. Very few teams go into the draft needing a starting center. Right? It's a really important position on the offensive line. So if your team needs a center, you're usually going to try to fill that in free agency or already have somebody on the depth chart that could step in. To the point where, like you were saying, Andy, he's a backup center that you take on day 3. That's probably most centers in the draft. Right? Like for a center to go high, they would need to be an immediate starter, and the team drafting them is likely going to need a starting center. Detroit Lions, I'm talking about you.
Yeah.
But yeah, so anybody else on Vanderbilt before we kick to the other side? We have some fun players in South Carolina to talk about.
That's all I got on Vandy.
Okay. Andy, who is your highest rated South Carolina player that is not named LaNoriss Sellars?
Oh man, we're really gonna go there because Nyck Harbor, the man, there's just so many questions about if he can actually play football. But I am so intrigued with Nyck Harbor because he is legitimately the freakiest athlete I've ever scouted. He's 6'5", 235 with legitimate 4.24 speed, pushes defenses vertically with elite acceleration, just at an insane rate. His deep ball tracking is making noticeable jumps. In the opener, in South Carolina's opener against Virginia Tech, he had the deep ball from LaNoriss Sellars that was like a 70-yard touchdown or something like that. He runs angry after the catch. He's a prototype red zone weapon with that size, with the ability to track the ball, with the ability to obtain the ball. Elite SEC track star. He's won awards. That speed translates. It's noticeable because he can, again, like I said, push those defenses vertically. He's taking the year-to-year noticeable jumps. And if he can build off of a solid start to the year this year, I really think we could see Nyck Harbor like go high. I think there's a real world where he goes first round just because, like I said, 6'5", 235, 4.24 speed. That's going to make any scout, that's going to make any GM at least ponder the idea of, we need a receiver. This guy is insane. The issues are, he's had some concentration drops. His route tree remains very limited. His technique as a whole isn't there yet. Basically just the ability, just like everything that a refined football player does. There's a lot of questions about that from Nyck Harbor, but the outlines of an elite receiver are there. And henceforth, I'm willing to have Nyck Harbor as the highest rated South Carolina guy outside of LaNoriss Sellars just because of the intrigue.
Have you seen enough from Andy, have you seen enough from Nyck Harbor this season in the 2 games that they've played to suggest that Nyck Harbor is closer to round 1 than he is to returning to school?
I would put him. That's tough because I'd put him day 2 right now. I'd put him probably. Let me see where I exactly have him. I have him like in the wide receiver 8 to 10 range, and a wide receiver class I generally like. So I think right now I'd lean on the side of return to school. But if he can build off of this year, keep showing improvement, keep showing all the signs of greatness, then I do think there's a real world where he goes first round.
Randall, where are you in Nyck Harbor? I don't know that I've heard your Nyck Harbor take yet this draft cycle, so I'm fastened in my seatbelt buckle.
Well, overall, he was first summer scouting by wide receiver 17, and then after 2 games, I moved him up to wide receiver 13. because at wide receiver 17, I didn't really know where to put him. But 2 games did make me jump him up to 4 to be make him up 4 spots, to be honest with you. I really I just wanted him to work out, and Andy pretty much nailed it, to be honest with you. So he did such a great job doing it. I mean, to piggyback off that with his track star, that 75-yard or whatever it was touchdown in week 1, that CB was 6'1", 171 pounds. Nyck Harbor is 6'5", 235? 235?
That was what Andy said. Yeah.
Yeah. So 65-pound difference. Outran him. I can't even think about that, to be honest. That's like physically impossible to think about. So that's like just like right there watching that, it's like, okay, well, somebody's going to take him, right? So right now he's at like wide receiver 13 for me, and I think he can jump up pretty quickly. I think in the Virginia Tech game, he looked better for sure. And I think the ball tracking, Andy nailed that too, which I love that you said that. That was perfect. And I do think that he doesn't need to grow, he needs to grow a little bit in the route tree, but he can't do it all, so that's fine. We know what you're capable of. We know what DK Metcalf is capable, sort of thing. And that's what you kind of should strive for when it comes down to it. But I think his in routes look better. I think he planted his foot at the stem and made a good move on the inside on his in routes. He dropped that one ball, as Andy said, that concentration drop, but the route looked good. And I think he will figure out his hands, to be honest with you. And then really, I'd just like to see like a really well done double move that he can so that you can sell the in route, sell the comebacks, but then push a go route as well. And then that's where your versatility lies. And that's kind of all you need when you're 235 pounds and you can outrun somebody 65 pounds lighter than you. Like, that's kind of all you need, right? And then you're wide receiver 1. So I think he's just going to jump up quickly. I have good confidence in that kid that I think he can figure it out by the end of the year. I wouldn't be surprised if he declares at the end of the year.
So I have, again, very similar to what we're talking about with the quarterbacks, is do you want to be in a quarterback class with Manning and Lagway? If we look at Nyck Harbor, does he want to be in that Ryan Williams and Jeremiah Smith draft class?
Absolutely not. Like,
right.
You're not going first.
You're not a top, in all likelihood, you're probably not a top 2 receiver in that draft class. And in this, because there's also Cam Coleman in the 2027 draft, who I like a lot. And in this draft, I mean, I'm very high on Jordan Tyson and Mekhi Lemon, but it's a lot more obtainable to think about being a top 2 receiver in this class than it would be in next year's class.
It would almost be like, if we're jumping the gun, it would be like, if a team, do you want Denzel Boston or do you want Nyck Harbor? Denzel Boston's a little lighter, can run a better route tree. Well, Nyck Harbor is the athleticism. If Nyck Harbor gets into declaring, would you rather have the athleticism and the big, strong guy, or somebody that maybe has a more refined route tree? Like, who are you picking between? Because I would put that probably at wide receiver 3 if Nyck Harbor figures it out.
Okay, so let's play a little Nyck Harbor game. Because we've got a few more players to cover. We've got plenty of time. So, Randall, who's faster, DK Metcalf or Nyck Harbor?
Nyck Harbor. I mean, he's got accolades, right?
Right.
He's got to prove it.
So, Andy, who do you think is faster, Nyck Harbor, and now I got to think of another fast receiver to comp him to?
Xavier Worthy, pre-shoulder injury.
There we go. Okay, actually, that's a good one. Yeah, Nyck Harbor, Xavier Worthy. Who do you think is faster?
I'm gonna say that the fact that we're talking about a 6'5", 235-pound receiver with the man who's run the fastest 40-yard dash of all time is insane. That's just how crazy Nyck Harbor is as an athlete. Worthy was a 4.2. Worthy was a 4.22, right?
4.21 finish.
So
yeah.
Yeah, and everything I've noted down as Harbor is about 4.24 in that range. So Worthy is probably faster, but again, Harbor is also probably 70 pounds bigger than him, and so that's insane.
Harbor would win the 100-meter. Worthy would win the 40.
Okay, so Randall, better route tree, DK Metcalf or Nyck Harbor?
DK Metcalf, because he's been in the NFL and he's got NFL camps and NFL locker rooms and NFL training rooms at DK Metcalf right now. But with Nyck Harbor's athleticism, he could be a better route runner than DK Metcalf.
Got it. And then trying to think of another fast receiver, because the Xavier Worthy part would get old. So essentially, like, and I know, like, Bill's in the chat. I think Bill comps Harbor pretty close to Calvin Johnson. But Calvin Johnson's a Hall of Fame player. I don't like comps to Hall of Fame players.
Right.
All due respect, Bill. It's a good comp. I just don't like it. Right? I'm not saying it's a bad comp. I'm just saying I don't like comping to Hall of Fame players. But Nyck Harbor, if you're in the audience and you are not familiar with the player, he's probably the most elite athlete you will see if you look back 10 years. Based upon every scouting report that I have heard on him, Andy and Randall are not the first two people to cover Nyck Harbor. We covered the game. Was it last week? No, last week South Carolina played South Carolina State.
Yeah.
It was the week before.
Probably Virginia Tech, yeah.
Yeah, we covered them against Virginia Tech. You can listen to the podcast, which covered them there. We did a South Carolina team breakdown. I believe Greg Rector did that with Dalton and a couple of others over the summer. It's the same. I'm hearing the same thing from everybody. We need to see him play football because when you watch him, you see an athlete, but you don't necessarily see a football player, to the point where over the summer we were convinced he should switch to defensive end.
Yeah.
I think that conversation's going away, but that was the conversation over the summer. Everybody on the podcast thought he should be a defensive end.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. Okay, Randall, who's your next highest player on South Carolina?
All right. So I hope that Bill's still here because I'm going to flip to the defensive side. And I now, first of all, before I say this, which now I'm actually blanking his name, the pass rusher for South Carolina, Dylan Stewart, because he's a sophomore, so he's not draft eligible. So he is clearly the next best one. But, we'll shout him out, but not talking about because he's not draft eligible. But Brandon Sissy, a transfer from NC State to South Carolina year one. He worked in slot and outside in NC State. He's working on the outside in South Carolina because Jalen Kilgore is running in the slot. And I think he is the best defensive back in 2025 right now for South Carolina, including Kilgore. I think he's had an incredible transfer over. They already nicknamed him Glitch because he is a glitch in the game. He's got super fast speed. He hits hard. And he's in the film room at 6 a.m. watching, from what I've heard, watching Stephon Gilmore. So he watches Stephon Gilmore tape in the morning before he does his early one. But, I mean, he's just a dynamic athlete. He's a track star in high school, played basketball in high school. In high school, he had 1,220 all-purpose yards and kick returns while playing on the defense and being wide receiver. Works boundary. He changes direction really quickly. Sticky on inside moves and outside moves in man coverage. His zone he can work on for sure is his weakness, but it's not that far of a drop-off. I really liked what I saw out of week one. He didn't play much of week two because obviously he's a blowout. But he did really well in week one. He had a really good PBU. I think it was the first play on a slant where he ran with them and stripped it out of them. He follows his wide receivers. Week two, he played like 3 snaps. He chased a quarterback down for a tackle for loss about 20 yards horizontally on an outside run versus Virginia Tech and got him down. So he's great in the run game. He can get off blocks even though he's 6 foot 182. He plays well in run defense. He's versatile. I love everything about him. I hope that he continues this so he gets into – he's a junior, so he could obviously stay another year. But he's one of my high risers in summer scouting and what we've only been 2 weeks through.
Yeah, and it's okay. Also, we can talk about Dylan Stewart. We talked about him when we did the summer scouting podcast. He might be Dylan Stewart might be the best edge in college football right now.
I think he is, right?
Yeah.
He's a madman. He could jump. Like, I don't know if he did triple jump, but his sacks start like 5 yards back and he just jumps onto people. It's incredible. His explosion is nuts.
So, Andy, anything to add?
I'll actually go with a different defensive back on South Carolina's defense. The one that Randall mentioned for a second. It's Jalen Kilgore. He's very versatile. I think he could survive in the NFL at playing either nickel or deep safety. I actually graded him as a deep safety, and I liked him more as a safety. And he could play deep safety, he could play box, he could play whatever. I like him as a safety. But he plays the nickel. He's played the outside for South Carolina. So the versatility is there. And with that comes a great physicality within his game. Great physicality against the run, great physicality in trying to knock balls loose. Displays natural instincts to win many reps. Very fluid athlete, very good run defender, like I mentioned. Prototype height, weight, speed profile for an outside corner. And when we talk about a guy who can play the outside, who can play the inside, who can play safety, that's what you want to see. He can mirror matchups in terms of he can go step for step, and captain-esque leadership traits all around South Carolina. My issues with him are he can gamble in coverage a little too often, I've noticed. Take bad reads and then allows a much bigger play than it had to be. He can get handsy when he loses leverage. And with the versatility, with him playing every position, it kind of feels like he's still learning some nuance to playing everything. But I like Jalen Kilgore. He's got a wide range of outcomes for me in terms of grade. Like, I started summer scouting with saying, "Ooh, this guy might be a second-round guy. This guy may even sneak into the first round." And then I watched more, and I'm like, "All right, I'm kind of on like third, fourth round maybe with this guy." He's got a very wide range, so this is really his season to establish his draft profile, I should say.
So, Andy, who do you like better, Jahdae Barron or Jalen Kilgore?
Jahdae Barron was my number. Yeah. Jahdae Barron was my number 10 prospect last year. So
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. Randall, where are you on Kilgore?
I like Kilgore as well. I think I have him right around Andy's as well. I have him in the fourth. And again, Andy nailed it, sort of thing. The only thing that I'd like to add probably to it is I'm curious at what his all three levels of speed are. So if he is trailing, like if he's playing safety, because honestly he played all slot in 2024, and then he played slot in the first 2 weeks with 2025. So he hasn't played much safety overall. So I'm curious if he's going to if he transitions to safety, kind of like Jordan Hancock for Buffalo. You know, they're looking him at safety, even though he played mainly nickel, but he's better at safety now, and they're trying to figure out how they can play safety. So it can be something like that, and Kilgore has that strength that Hancock has as well. That's kind of cool. So I would like to see that. I'd just like to see maybe clean up a little bit of footwork. I think he takes a little too many extra steps when defending in man coverage, and it kind of slows him down, and then you can create separation. But that's really it. Other than that, Andy nailed it, and I got him in the fourth as well.
Okay. So Jalen Kilgore, it's interesting because I agree on the wide range of grades. So Andrew Harbaugh, who is a draft professor, he covers the Minnesota Vikings, has mocked Jalen Kilgore in the USA Today to the Minnesota Vikings in round 1.
Ooh.
Yeah. So the range on the grades on Kilgore are real, like from round 1 to round 4, and the there's also a scheme
almost the
aspect.
cornerback. That's almost like the cornerback class this year, right? Cornerback class is pretty top. What's the word? I was almost going to use toxic. That's not a good idea. But random? Not random. I don't know. I can't think of a word, but it's all over the place.
There's not consensus yet.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Better.
I had to come up with a good way. To explain what you were trying to say.
I had nothing. Yeah.
Okay, so we've covered Kilgore, Harbor, Sellars. What other players on South Carolina do you guys like from a draft standpoint? Andy?
An interesting one I should mention is their running back, Rahsul Faison. I really don't know how to pronounce it, but is he 25 or is he 26? He's very overaged. Got granted the NCAA waiver to return for his redshirt senior year for his 6th year. And has had a solid start to the year at 40 yards against Virginia Tech with 7 carries, had 5 carries against South Carolina State, but they didn't need to play him much because it's South Carolina State.
Mhm.
And you look back at last year where you can get a picture of him as a starting running back. He had over 1,100 yards, 8 touchdowns, just consistent week in and week out performances. I think skill for skill, Rahsul Faison is a draftable player in this draft. The question is, though, how do you view him with his age? Like, are you going to draft a 21-year-old running back who is noticeably worse than this guy, but also has so much higher upside? Or are you going to draft the high floor and Faison? And when you're on day 3, it's tougher to reason with the 26-year-old guy where you can get like some explosive, high upside guy to just put in a committee and see what happens.
Randall, where are you on Faison?
Yeah, I'm day 3 because I do think the age plays a huge factor and the eligibility and things like that. And then you'd really have to have a breakout year to get anything closer. But I think he's stuck in late day 3. I did like what I saw. I mean, he's got great moves. He had 3.86 yards after contact last year with 69 missed tackles for, so he's got it all. He showed that in the Virginia Tech game with his one breakout that he had that you mentioned, the 40 yards, because he didn't get many carries, and some of the carries went straight through the middle, and Attaway was taking a lot in week 1. But his breakout run was incredible. He got the ball, and there was a defender an inch away from him, and he cut real quick, had patience, watched the block, and then took off, and then gained it till about like the 8-yard line. I thought that was very impressive, and that showed his skill set in one run, basically. So if he can get his volume back up and then his production back up, and then South Carolina, I would predict that they have a good chance to get into the playoffs. Show your stuff in the college playoffs, and then you're going to get noticed, and then you'll start talking, where does he go in day 3?
So, Randall, buy or sell? Rahsul Faison is one of the 5 best running backs in college football right now.
Sell.
Is he in the top 10?
No.
Okay, so there you have other running backs that you like that are skill for skill better.
Yes.
Andy, I liked how you said skill for skill because that was actually really similar to what EJ said when we did South Carolina, Virginia Tech. Is that Faison likely, if I'm interpreting what you said, Faison has better skills right now than a lot of the running backs that are going to be in the draft. The issue is, to your point, and Randall brought it up too, is that NFL teams don't like drafting players that are 23 years old, much less a player that's 26. But if you're only going to give the running back one contract and then you're going to let him go, Faison will be 30, I think, in his 4th season, in his 4th NFL season.
Yeah, he'll be 30 by the time his rookie contract ends. So it's really just like Faison won't be the last time this happens when we're looking at an NFL draft, or looking at some random running back, and they're going to be 26 years old on draft night. This won't be the last time it happens, but it's just such an unusual thing now because we really haven't seen anything like it.
Yep. So if you're a college player watching this and you're a running back, you want to get into the NFL draft by the time you're 23. By the time you're 24, 25, 26, your draft stock is going to take a steep drop if you didn't already know that. And for running backs and cornerbacks, I think that's very real, right? The NFL likes younger players at those positions. So, Randall, anybody else on South Carolina that you'd like to mention?
Yeah, I'll go with the 2 edges and outside linebackers, so I'll talk about them twice, both of them, because one is kind of probably UDFA. Other one maybe too, but Bryan Thomas Jr., the edge out of South Carolina, he is interesting enough to talk about. I really like his speed and explosion. He's 6'2", 249, so he's a little bit lighter on the frame. He had last year 11 pressures with just 3 sacks and 6 quarterback hits. He helps in the run defense. He's a good turnover machine. He had 2 forced fumbles. He's got really solid explosion on the left side. If he comes out on 5-eye, he's good. But if he comes out in that 6 or 7-eye, he can gain those extra steps, and he's super twitchy, and he can move quick. He's got decent explosion. He's got good length for setting the edge. He's got very long arms. I'm curious to see where we can get that verified to help with shedding in the run defense. My concern is that lightweight, and sometimes he doesn't come with a pass rush plan, mainly at all, to be honest with you. So he needs to develop a pass rush plan to be able to win more with his slim frame. And what he did is versus South Carolina State, there was actually tape for South Carolina offense against South Carolina State. And the left tackle for South Carolina State was god awful. Apologies about it, but he was not good. He was very slow. And Bryan Thomas Jr. was quick. So basically he found out within the first quarter that he could just win around the edge on speed. And he did it 3 times, gained 3 pressures there. And then he got cocky enough to where he started doing, like, kind of practicing his pass rush until he got taken out in the first half. And he showed a really good inside move. He showed a very good spin move. And he showed some good speed to power. But I believe he only did that is because he got cocky enough to pull those out. And he never did it against stiffer competition. So if he wants to get in the draft, we need to see those moves on good left tackles or good right tackles to prove that you can do it to get into the NFL. So right now, Bryan Thomas Jr. is probably like a late day 3 PFA for me, but he has good technique and traits to where he could get into the draft and he can kind of work on it. And then Gatus Gear, he's huge. He's 6'6", 250, super tall. So he is more of an outside linebacker. His coverage is not that bad, but his pass rush is a lot more to desire for because he's so tall. He comes in with a high pad level, and he doesn't really have much of a pass rush plan either. So he's got a lot to work on, but it's kind of fun seeing both of those guys on the outside edge because they're kind of similar types but different frames. But Bryan Thomas Jr. could get into the draft. He's an interesting prospect to watch this year.
Andy, anybody else you want to mention?
A fun name, and I don't know, like, I haven't really looked into him past surface level for an NFL draft note, but I feel like I should mention it is the other running back in South Carolina who has taken a lot of the workload this early in this year's is Oscar Adaway III. Last year, I remember in the bowl game in the Cheez-It Bowl against Illinois, he had 14 carries for 106 yards and a touchdown. I remember he really popped there. Had a 36-yard touchdown run I'm seeing. And then, early part of this year, he's gotten a lot of the workload. Virginia Tech had a few nice runs, had most of the carries. I think he had double-digit carries. I know he is draft eligible because this is his second year at South Carolina now, and his first year was at North Texas, I want to say, where he had like 700 yards and 6 or so touchdowns. So while I don't know enough about him on an NFL note to give him a grade, I do feel like he is worth noting.
I do believe he's a grad student, so I believe this is his final year of eligibility, I think. So, but I do agree. I like every time he definitely popped every time he ran. He's got good breakout. He's got good bounce out, and he's got good speed around that bend. So I did like to see that too. I agree.
Well, why don't we pause for podcaster identification? Andy, you want to tell everybody about all of your content, your Substack, and everything else that you do?
Yeah, Twitter is at AndyNFL with 2 Y's, doing a ton of draft content right now. Like I said when I opened the show, Dante Moore is legit. My last post today was about Dante Moore and how legit he is because Dante Moore is awesome. And just content like that all draft season long. And then Substack, well, I have not been consistent at all. I'm hoping to be soon. And that's just Andy NFL as well. I would appreciate if you follow and subscribe.
Randall.
All right, at Randall Slifer on Twitter and Blue Sky. You can find me there. I try to interact with everybody. I'm here on Tuesdays, and anytime I can fill in for the Draft Professor with Jim. I do a Buffalo Bills podcast on Mondays with Do Champions with a couple great Bills fans as well. And then I also write for Team MBS Media for the Arkansas Razorbacks and the Buffalo Bills and some other stuff. And I'm also part of their Draft Central that starts after the season ends. And then I also do a college football podcast on Saturdays at 8 Eastern, 7 Central with Greg Rector. We go through the day and talk about that and then cover the 6:30 highlight game that's typically on, which I believe we're doing this weekend is the Notre Dame, Texas A&M. Will be live while we're live, and we'll talk about the day, and then talk about that game as it goes on.
Oh, that should be fun. Make sure that
Because he's a Notre Dame fan. I know I'm gonna talk so much crap about Notre Dame.
Well, yeah, but make sure you nudge me when you guys are live, because I'll listen to that while I watch that game.
Okay, cool. We'll do.
Yeah, please.
I have to be a Texas A&M fan just to mess with them, and I hate Texas A&M as an Arkansas fan.
I have to.
I'll pretend.
I have to watch some Cassius Howell.
Yeah.
And is it the quarterback's name is Marcel
Reed.
Marcel Reed.
That's right.
I had some of the sounds. I just didn't connect them all together.
Yeah.
Is Marcel Reed in the next draft class too with Arch?
I don't know.
I'm sure he's a 2027 guy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. So, okay. So you can follow the channel. You can follow Draft Professor at NFL Draft Fanatic. No, I am Fanatic. You can follow it on X. You can follow it on YouTube. What you get is daily draft content. This is the first podcast today. So we podcast it. Today it was 7:30. Usually it's 7 p.m. and 9 p.m. Eastern every weeknight. And right now we're covering a college football game and telling you the draft eligible players we like in each game. And then starting in October, those same podcasts are going to start breaking down the draft class. So Randall and Andy will be here to break down the wide receiver class for you. 8 wide receivers at a time. They'll probably end up covering about 56 wide receivers over a span of about 7 weeks, and let you know what the, let's say, the draft quality of the wide receiver class is. So every Draft Professor podcast will have different positions. So if you want to see defensive line, show up, Mondays or Wednesdays. If you want to see wide receivers, you want to show up Tuesdays or Wednesdays, etc. Right? So every podcast will be covering different positions, and that's what we do here. And then once we break down the positions, then we get into, let's say, maybe some more exciting content, which would include some mock drafts and things like that. Daily draft content here at the Draft Professor. We couldn't do it without Randall and Andy, who show up one day a week, and there's 24 other podcasters, just like Randall and Andy. They're showing up one day a week, allowing us to podcast every day. So give those two gentlemen a follow, please and thank you. That's what's making the channel function, and we couldn't do it without either of you, so that's greatly appreciated. With that being said, let's play a little game here with with South Carolina and Vanderbilt. For the 2026 draft, I'm going to put the over-under at 7.5. Andy, will more or less than 7.5 players in this game get drafted in 2026?
Let me look at the player list real quick and count.
I'll go far lower. So I'll go first. I'll go far lower. Even you got Sellars, Faison. I'll go far lower.
Because we don't know if Sellars or Harbor is in this draft class. That's the tricky part of this.
I think the line should be 3.5 or 4.5.
I would go under on 7.5.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's like Stowers, Kilgore, and then maybe Faison, maybe Sellers, maybe Harbor.
Yeah. Oh, and one person that, before we take off, that I would like South Carolina, if you're watching South Carolina, give Damon Clowney more reps so we can see him play. The younger brother of Jadavian. I mean, he looked good. He's transferred over. The week 2 he got in for the second half because it was a blowout. But I think he's better than Gear. Give him snaps and let him do his thing. He's an outside linebacker edge. I want to see what he can do in South Carolina.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, we're going to close this down. We'll have another podcast coming on in about 30 minutes. We're going to close this one down for Randall, Andy, the 93 podcasters at the Draft Professor. Thank you so much for watching. We will see you on a podcast again tomorrow or in 30 minutes and tomorrow night.